3 cheers for King Charles. Hip hip huzzah!
King Charles has made his first state visit to America as monarch.
Whatever our differences, we stand united in our commitment to uphold democracy.
He's had to tackle the Trump issue and some off-script moments.
Charles agrees with me even more than I do. We're never going to let that opponent have a nuclear weapon.
The royal team, they were kind of really shocked. That, oh my God, I can't believe he said that.
And made some good jokes.
If it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French.
Mr. Charles, you are really nice.
But will it be enough to reset relations between the two nations? Well, the King and Queen are now here in the United States for their state visit. They're heading off now to the White House. This is going to be a very, very significant visit, not without its challenges. It has so many risks involved, not least the fact that on Saturday night there was the shooting at the dinner attended by the president. Last-minute arrangements have been taking place to review, to reassess all the security and engagements over the next 4 days that the King will be taking part in. The decision made both with the US security teams and the British security teams that this visit should still go ahead. Some minor modifications, we're told, and they can make changes along the way as and when needed.
Well, it's just gone 4 o'clock here on the south lawn of the White House, and you can see here, there is the south portico. Everyone getting ready. The President and the First Lady will come out through those doors shortly because the King and Queen will be rolling up here very soon.
At the White House, a beaming president was clearly happy to host the royal couple. But behind these smiles lies a serious diplomatic mission. The government hopes combining the King and a president who loves the British monarchy will pay diplomatic dividends and help heal frictions in the historic friendship. Because on the surface, it's all about honouring 250 years of American independence. But today's landscape is shaped by sharper political differences and a president with unconventional diplomacy. Not that you'd know it here. For the King and Queen, a garden party at the British Embassy, on much safer ground with guests from both sides of the Atlantic.
Your Majesty. Your Majesty.
Well, the garden party has just drawn to a close here for the King and the Queen at the Ambassador's residence on Massachusetts Avenue. It was packed inside the garden. The King and the Queen were there for, I guess, about an hour and a bit. The Queen left just before the King to go to a separate engagement, all planned, but both of them met a lot of people. Some people there was a plan for them to meet. There were different pods around the garden and they were ushered to these different areas to meet different people. But some of it was very spontaneous as well. And it was kind of the great and the good from Washington society, both cultural, political as well. So this was soft power in action at the garden party for the King and the Queen.
Right! Full fanfare, a dazzling display and a star-spangled welcome, White House style. The scale of this military show, a first for a state visit and a sign how much it means to him to host royalty. Side by side, the King and the President could not be closer. Two countries, two old allies, but a backdrop of transatlantic tension.
Well, they've certainly pulled out all the stops here in the United States for this visit. I've never seen anything quite like this at the White House.
From Donald Trump came a love letter to British royalty.
Thank you very much, everybody. What a beautiful British day this is.
And fulsome praise for the UK-US friendship.
That understanding of our nation's unique bond and role in history is the essence of our special relationship, and we hope it will always remain that way.
Yeah, I think we've got our headline, haven't we? The headline is, My Mother Had a Crush on Charles.
Charles, look, young Charles. He's so cute. It's my mother. My mother had a crush on Charles. Can you believe it?
It was a remarkable speech, wasn't it? I think he was gushing. We got a real sense, as we have before, but I think perhaps even more than we have before, of his fondness for the UK.
Inside the Oval Office, a meeting that mattered. What was discussed? Well, we'll probably never know. No cameras allowed to capture the conversation.
A really good meeting. And he's a fantastic person. They are incredible people. It's a real honor. Thank you.
And then to Congress and the King's address. Quite possibly, this was his most political speech ever.
Whatever our differences, whatever disagreements we may have, we stand united in our commitment to uphold democracy, to protect all our people from harm, and to salute the courage of those who daily risk their lives in the service of our countries.
A strong defence of NATO, an acknowledgement of current disputes, and a chance to strengthen ties that feel so frayed.
As my Prime Minister said last month, ours is an indispensable partnership. We must not disregard everything that has sustained us for the last 80 years. Instead, we must build on it.
There was so much potential for jeopardy. Outside Congress, victims of paedophile Jeffrey Epstein gathered.
We're not going away. We're going to keep showing up, and we hope that you show up with us. He's certainly stood a lot stronger than our own president here of the United States. I do commend the King for that, but I also think this is a very missed opportunity, and I hope that he has the chance to acknowledge, hopefully the next time that he's available here, that we need to have a world leader step up in a way that we haven't seen from our own president.
12 standing ovations, one happy king, touched, we're told, by the warmth of the response. This address was certainly the centrepiece of the state visit, the British government's message to the US. And with the King's tone and tenor, they hope his words will mollify the hardened stance of the president. Topping off the day, a state dinner, white tie at the White House, and toasts from country to country.
And First Lady Melania Trump, accompanied by their majesties, King Charles III and Queen Camilla.
We're doing a little Middle East work right now, two of you might know, and we're doing very well. We have militarily defeated that particular opponent, and we're never going to let that opponent ever, Charles agrees with me, even more than I do, we're never going to let that opponent have a nuclear weapon.
Well, that was quite a moment. We listened to both the speeches. President Trump spoke first, and then the King.
Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French.
And, you know, President Trump's speech, most of it was not particularly interesting, but there was one bit where he ad-libbed. He went off script and he talked about Iran, and he said, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And he said, and the King agrees with me. That was a moment where he went political. And I have to say, the royal teams who are here from London, they were kind of really shocked that, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. So that was a moment that I think Buckingham Palace had been worried about, that the president would veer off and say something that could just be a bit awkward for the King.
We're on the corner of Liberty Street and West Street. This is as near as we can get to the event itself. That's the World Trade Center memorial across the street, and it's surrounded something like 100 yards radius, I would say. Security clearly tight.
I think it's great. I'm glad that the British haven't really soured with the United States, and they're trying to keep the bridge between our two countries, strong.
I came here today to thank the King for coming to honor the victims of 9/11, including my late husband. And I wanted to thank the UK for coming to the US's defense during 9/11, along with all the other NATO countries, the only time that Article 5 was ever invoked. And I don't think people appreciate the UK enough in this country. So I just wanted to be thankful in my own little way.
Well, the King and Queen have just left here, this national memorial to commemorate the events of September the 11th and remember those who lost their lives in this year, which will be the 25th anniversary of those attacks. And so today they came to lay a wreath at the edge of one of these huge pools to remember those who lost their lives, including not just people from New York, but from right around the world and the Commonwealth, including many Brits as well. These pools representing where those twin towers stood. It really was a poignant moment. They also then went to meet survivors, first responders and families who lost loved ones on September the 11th and took their time walking along the line, hearing their stories and speak to some of the survivors, some of the first responders, and the message they have is one of never forgetting, that it meant a lot having the King and Queen here to help in this 25th anniversary year, and a sense of the unity that they hope will come about as a result of this. This is obviously day 3 of this really significant state visit, a day just spent here in New York, and I think probably a very useful moment for the King to move away from the very volatile politics of Washington and into the kind of territory and engagements you associate with these sorts of visits. So 4 more events here in New York, but certainly for 9/11, a poignant pause in what really is quite an eventful state visit so far.
Less diplomatic, a second unplanned outburst from Trump.
He's a great king, and he's a great friend of mine. And I think if he were doing that, if that were up to him, he would have probably helped us with Iran. He would have followed the suggestions we made with respect to Ukraine.
We've heard Trump say worse, but the problem is the King's supposed to be above politics, and it's the second time in 2 days he's spoken out like this. Embarrassing again for the palace, no doubt glad for some distance from DC with a day here in New York.
You're going to put it deep into the dirt.
And so to a patch of Harlem going green, growing sustainable farms from disused urban lots. Everything here shared to feed the community, all curious to chat to their visitor.
You just bent down. King Charles. Is your name Mr. King Charles? Mr. Charles, you are really nice.
For the Queen, an event at New York's iconic public library with a pretty iconic guest list, but also took time with charities supporting victims of abuse. A big day in the Big Apple before returning to Washington, and a final goodbye to the president and his unpredictable posturing on the King.
Warm words, a fond farewell, and for the president, certainly one special relationship he cherishes.
Great king. What was your greatest visit? The greatest king.
Does the King feel the same way? We'll never know, but he's charmed the White House at a time of tension between Britain and the US.
Well, just as the King and Queen were leaving the White House, their final goodbyes said, I thought that might be a good moment to give the president a try on the phone. As you know, he picks up every now and again. Actually, I didn't think he would pick up this time. I thought he might be busy, but he did. And so it was a good moment to ask him, obviously, how the trip went. Brilliant, wonderful, all those superlatives. He absolutely loved it. But for me, what I really wanted to try and get out of him, and in these calls you never quite know because they're always they're sometimes very quick and he could hang up at any point. I wanted to understand from him what he thought of those speeches, those speeches from King Charles, especially the one to Congress, which, as the dust has settled and we've all thought about precisely what he said, it was pretty extraordinary. He said some stuff that, maybe no other world leader could get away with. They were deftly written and quietly critical almost a riposte of Trumpism. Now, either all of that went straight over Donald Trump's head, or because he loves the king, he chose to ignore it. But he said to me, it was a brilliant speech. It was delivered beautifully with that beautiful accent. He got a standing ovation, and I thought it was fantastic in all respects. We also, of course, discussed Keir Starmer, because one of the points of this trip, surely, was to try and just smooth over the relationship between Starmer and Trump. Well, that doesn't seem to have worked, not yet at least, because on Starmer he's still very angry, thinks he's not a particularly good leader. He said at one point, I think he, the king, is a much different person than your prime minister. Your prime minister has to learn to deal the way he deals, and he will do a lot better. Ouch. The final thing that I got out of the president was where he's going to put that bell.
I'm delighted to present to you, as a personal gift, the original bell which hung on the conning tower of your valiant namesake. May it stand as a testimony to our nation's shared history and shining future.
Well, that bell from HMS Trump, that World War II submarine, is going to be placed in the Oval Office. Not only that, but it's going to sit, we're told, or the president told me, right next to the bust of Sir Winston Churchill.
Ready!
At Arlington Cemetery, a moment to remember the fallen from the Civil War to more modern conflict. And then to Virginia's aptly named Front Royal. Remarkably, this town's the first time the couple have met the crowds. 250 years ago, they probably wouldn't have welcomed the king like this. But here now, a block party celebrating America's birthday.
Hip hip huzzah! Hip hip huzzah! Hip hip huzzah!
It's an irony, isn't there? We're here celebrating 250th birthday of the US, and you're inviting a king to that celebration today, right?
Yes, well, we know you're run by a parliament and the prime minister is very important, but the king is special to us. The king and the queen are very special to us. Especially the queen is a big book person. I used to own the Royal Oak Bookshop in town here, so I want to wave to her. I want to meet her more than anything, but we'll see what happens. We just don't know.
It's hard to underplay how much pressure there was to get this trip right. It had huge risk, and it could have gone very differently. I think what we've learned is Trump loves the king and he loves our country, but that's very separate to how he feels about our politics and our prime minister. Now, one couple I spoke to perhaps summed it up, saying, we're like an old married couple. Sometimes we get on, sometimes we don't. But they said to me, the king and queen remind us there's a politer, a proper way to do things. And sometimes that's missing here.